The first termination hearing began today. The administrator is Mike Ossenkop, principal at Sky Ranch Elementary School in Moore. The district alleges Ossenkop falsified his expense claims from a trip to Houston in last February. The school district's attorney argued that the 6 fired administrators had a meeting at which they agreed to all file false reports. Eric Grove says Jan Calloway, a principal at Meadowbrook School in Moore, also attended the convention in Houston. And then she went to the meeting where the 6 fired administrators agreed to turn in the false claims with respect to a meal they never ate.
She overheard them discussing what they should charge and in what range this charge should be, and they seem to be settling somewhere in the $15 to $18 range. Mr. Ossenkop specifically was overheard conversing concerning what would be the proper amount to charge.
But Ossenkop's attorney, Lana Tyree, says Jan Calloway is wrong. She says Ossenkop is being treated unfairly by the district.
That Mike Ossenkop has been singled out and treated totally differently from every other person in that school district. That the school policies, rules have been violated, that his due process rights have been rankly trampled upon on every occasion, that they have furthered the violation of his rights by setting about a course designed to prevent him from having a fair trial.
The day ended with Ossenkop being questioned by Groves. Ossenkop did admit he obtained a receipt from a Houston restaurant where he didn't eat, but Ossenkop also maintains he was just getting the receipt because he forgot to get one at a restaurant where he actually did have a meal.
But those comments that Mr. Grove...
Time and the place of meeting.
This is the second day of the termination hearing for Moore Principal Mike Ossenkop. Ossenkop is one of 6 administrators accused of falsifying expense reports during a trip to a convention in Houston last February. The school district attorney Eric Groves questioned Ossenkop about a meeting after the trip. The meeting was held in the office of Assistant Superintendent Gene Ross and was attended by all the administrators who went to Houston. The school district alleges that at the meeting, the 6 men, including Ossenkop, conspired to file a false claim for a dinner on February 9th that they did not pay for. Ossenkop denied that was the purpose of the meeting.
During the course of the meeting, did you overhear anyone in this small office mention any figure that they were charging for anything?
No, sir.
Ossenkop says he just made an honest mistake and has always been willing to reimburse the school district. Bill Ross, Action 4 at the Oliver Hodge Building.
Here is the little map that shows where we're hoping, what we're doing in our first series of alerts.
Officials at the state health department have issued an alert to health departments across the state to alert their communities about a possible measles outbreak. Parents should become aware of the problem and make sure they check their children's immunization records. The health department is operating on a preemptive basis rather than let things get out of hand.
Our concern is that the probabilities are that the outbreak will spread to other counties, and it will probably spread in those counties closest to Oklahoma County and then spread into the areas where there's a lot of travel in and out of Oklahoma County among the population centers.
As of Sunday night, 1,400 children have been immunized, and the City County Health Department is now extending until Friday its free immunization clinic. Even if a child is exposed to measles, if he gets a shot within 72 hours, he still has a good chance of beating it. The measles scare has not reached epidemic proportions, but with school starting in a few weeks, health officials are concerned it could.
See, all gone.
Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the City County Health Department.
This year, the commotion in the school lunchroom won't be over higher lunch prices. In most of Oklahoma's 600 schools, the cost of lunches will remain the same, from 60 cents in some school districts to $1.25 in others. The situation is different than a year ago, when federal cutbacks forced schools to raise their lunch prices. Tom Freeman, administrator with the state school lunch program, says the prices have stabilized because of new state legislation. The schools get money back on each lunch they sell.
the legislature also put in 8 cents for all meals, whether they be free, reduced, or paid, with the intent that unless the school district was to decrease their, unless the schools were to operate at a deficit this year, that they hold their prices at the 81-82 charges.
Freeman says by not raising prices, schools are hoping to get back those students who switched to bringing their own lunch last year. Debbie Mash, Action 4.
There are a lot of questions to answer after last night's accident. According to police officials, the officer involved, 25-year-old Alan Massey, was in pursuit of another vehicle when he was hit, but no one is exactly sure who he was chasing. There is also the question of why out of 5 people in the Carlson car, no one heard or saw the car coming. According to eyewitnesses, all other vehicles had come to a stop when the westbound patrol car came through the intersection with sirens and lights on, even though he had a red light. This morning, all that was left at the crash site were bits and pieces of the cars.
Because of the police officer involved in this accident, the investigation into it is a bit different than normal procedure allows for.
Since the accident does involve an Oklahoma City police car, the investigative information will be presented to the Departmental Accident Review Board for their review and consideration, and they will be charged with the responsibilities of determining if any departmental policies or city ordinances were violated as they relate to that accident.
While there has been much speculation as to why the Carlson car pulled out in front of the oncoming patrolman, there have been no charges indicated. But one thing is for certain, an Edmond family has lost a mother and a young child. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
The main prison was built in 1908, just a year after statehood. The barbed wire and bricks have held back some of the state's toughest prisoners. The new units will be dramatically different from the old. The only bars in the new cell blocks are attached to hand railings. Penitentiary Deputy Warden Ted Wallman says the new units are built with reinforced concrete and tempered glass instead of bars. Workmen are putting the finishing touches on the 3 new cell blocks. When they finish this fall, 300 inmates will be transferred to more comfortable and more secure quarters.
This is probably 500% better in that in this cell block, the inmate's safer because he has a door instead of a steel barred front. The officer is safer for the same reason, and then you additionally have the design, which is a semicircle, and that the officer has full view of everyone in that housing unit.
Prison design has come a long way in the past 60 years, but some people would say removing the bars transforms a prison into a country club. The Corrections Department would counter by saying it's easier to handle inmates when they're housed in comfortable one-man cells. The cells are Spartan with their built-in twin mattresses. Besides, the view from the new Big Mac cells is a constant reminder that this is no country club. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the McAlester State Prison.
It seems surprising that any petroleum-related company would be expanding at a time when the state's oil industry appears to be running out of energy. But the drilling equipment division of the Armco National Supply Company is growing. In fact, they've grown out of their old building and into a new, bigger building. That new structure was opened today with a celebration that included raising the company flag on a mobile rig. It's a symbol of management's high hopes for a profitable future, despite grim predictions.
The industry, I think, goes through these wobbles, and I get concerned that during the last 2 years there's been a great deal of expansion, over-expansion, if you will. A lot of newcomers that weren't in the business a few years ago. and it becomes a watering out or a diluting process, and it's going to be painful for a while, I think, for the industry generally. But when 1985 or 6 or 7 rolls around, I think those who have the staying power and those who are offering the service to a very key business.
Harris says because of the drop in the oil industry, business will be slow to start out with. But he's banking on the company name and the reputation that comes with it. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 in Canadian County.
I was back there washing, and it sounded like an explosion. And the car come through there, knocked over the machines, and pinned a lady up against the wash machine. And they got her, and they got her to sit down and everything. It hit a man, didn't hurt him very bad, just hit him on the knee. But it just scared everybody. Everybody jumped up. It sounded exactly like an explosion.
In light of the rubeola measles outbreak, thousands of children have now received their immunizations. Currently, 92% of the state's school children have been inoculated. And there's more good news. In the last few days, the number of reported cases of the highly infectious disease has leveled off. But there's still a very real problem. 3 counties, Oklahoma, Lincoln, and Canadian, have confirmed cases of rubeola measles, and cases are suspected in 17 other counties.
We are encouraged that the rate at which these cases are coming to our attention is slowing down, but we anticipate that it's going to be probably days, if not weeks, before we see the end of this outbreak. Parents should be aware that all children 15 months of age and over should be protected against measles or should have had the disease. Those are the only ways that you can be sure that your child is not susceptible to this illness.
Cameron warns that rubeola measles are not exclusive to the younger set. He cautions anyone who has not received their immunization to do so. He particularly warns pregnant women and teenagers to receive their inoculations. Debbie Mash, Action 4 at the State Health Department.
During the Vietnam conflict, U.S. troops used herbicides like Agent Orange to clear out thick jungle foliage. The effects on the forest were clear. The effects on the troops are still debated, and many veterans charge the federal government as being less than cooperative in helping to find answers.
I think we all recognize that many of you around this table have been concerned with this issue for a long time. Some
national groups believe that the newly formed Oklahoma Agent Orange Outreach Committee has the potential for leading the way in veteran studies. The committee is like several others formed by state legislatures across the country, but the Oklahoma Study Group has a wider scope on veteran problems.
We should not narrow ourselves to looking for one particular cause and blame dioxin. I think we should have a good overview, and I think we should look at the symptoms that the veterans are suffering. Studies that conclude in 2002 will not help the veteran that's dying today.
Veterans are enthused about the Oklahoma Study Group, although they have their reservations. This meeting was only an organizational one, but the group plans to meet monthly to find ways to help educate both doctors and veterans on the effects of exposure to Agent Orange and other herbicides. In addition, they hope their studies will lead the way to a little more help for the veteran from the federal government. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at the State Health Department.
This evening, as they came home from work and they began to cook supper and do the things that they do of an evening and demand the water, then the system wasn't able to supply enough to supply their needs. Consequently, they were out of water, or some people just had lower pressure.
Did you have use for city service? I called up. Okay, here.
The typical investment for many people here for the last 2 or 3 years has been such things as money market funds and CDs and treasury bills and things of this nature. Now it looks like it may be a time to shift your investments from those more traditional conservative investments to other market-oriented type investments that might promise a greater return.
Now, let's read this and do this.
No, it's never a problem. Forward. Okay.
This is super training. It's going to help them on election day. And of course, the bottom line on this is service to the voter. And we think that these types of workshops are going to add additional service to the voter.
Not many investors really know about it, but the ones that do are really quite excited because you can essentially trade the entire stock market. Now, a lot of people have bought stocks before. They'll serve it through a day like Tuesday. We'll have one of the few stocks that it just doesn't go up. Everything else is exploding. But with this feature, you can trade the whole market. If the Dow Jones is going up and you're long, you're going to benefit. You can also go short. If the Dow Jones plummets like it has for the past a few years, you'd benefit from that.
Press kit, I hope. If you do not, there's some back. Sewer lines, things like that. There is no public transportation system, to my knowledge, in the United States and probably in the world that operates at a profit. You got to decide, if you want public transportation, it's going to have to be subsidized. So it's totally unrealistic to be saying that, well, you're going to bail out this outfit or you're going to bail out that outfit. If you want it, you got to pay for it. The only way we can have a really viable, effective, economical system is to have one for the entire area. So it's an important thing that this be done for reasons of economy, and especially in areas where they now have mass transit systems like Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Today at the Oklahoma University Student Union, friends, fellow administration officials, and just plain admirers gathered to say their farewell to resigning University President Bill Banowski. While Banowski admits his decision to leave was not an easy one, he feels his tenure as a university leader has been a successful one.
One of the great things about a university is that it's enduring, and whenever you leave it, there's still more to do. And it's that sense of permanence, which is its deepest fulfillment, and that sense of incompletion, which is always present whenever you leave. We accomplished a great deal, and the university has a very bright future.
Some of the people attending today's reception expressed a sense of loss on the president's resignation.
The growth of the university in the past 4 years while he's been here has been phenomenal. And we faculty feel it's going to be a great loss here.
The university has had its most successful years under his administration, and anytime one loses a person of his caliber, I'm sure he'll be missed.
So for Banowski, it's goodbye Oklahoma, hello California, as he prepares to assume the position as president of the LA Chamber of Commerce, but in the process leaves a lot of friends behind. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
And I'll just say that if you look to the record, it's difficult, of course, to bat 1,000. If you bat 300 in the major leagues, you can name your own prize. But I just want to tell you that the goal is to not be the most popular governor, but the goal is to be the best governor.
It's nice to say let's cut spending, but as governor, I want to build more roads. It's nice to say let's freeze the number of state employees, let's don't have any more, but I think people want more highway patrolmen. So I think that one of the disadvantages is that he can speak, having not been in office, he can speak differently. Being in office, I feel committed to speak to what I call reality.
It's disturbing to her, and maybe with some psychiatric care she can put it out of her mind to some extent, but she also tells me that she's been having some bad dreams about large mice chasing her, large rats and things like that.
The sound of a mechanical ditch digger has replaced the noise of students at the Earlsboro School this week. The school is shut down until plumbers can replace leaky natural gas lines on school property. 2 weeks ago, students were sent home when clogged sewer lines stunk up the buildings. When the plumbers are finished, students will return to classrooms which have been flooded by past rains. High school principal Dion Bleer says his teachers are concerned that the school's budget is being strained. Some teachers have criticized the school superintendent for spending money on maintenance and athletics instead of educational materials.
Some of the teachers are upset because of the textbooks. We're lacking in textbooks. We need more. And we find it hard to teach kids to read if we don't have textbooks for them to read out of, and including library books. Reading is becoming an emphasis in the schools. So we're trying to get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic as much as we can.
You know, for 300 students, and by the time we finish the year with $23,000 to $25,000 in instructional supplies, that's not shabby for a poor school district like this. So the priorities are on instruction.
The plumbers have promised to work on the natural gas lines all weekend. School officials hope to have students back in classrooms Monday morning. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Earlsboro.
Hopefully, there won't be a mini filibuster in the Energy and Commerce Committee. And then after the Energy and Commerce Committee, it goes to the Ways and Means Committee, and if we can get a fair and expeditious hearing there, and it gets to the floor, then I'm confident of passage. The biggest obstacle now is time, because we're running out of time in this session. But if everyone stays on schedule, that's manageable. So the Chrysler will be the end of the cycle, and hopefully...
Hard to go over there. Have you ever used a dictaphone? Never have. How fast do you type? Not that fast. So many words per minute. So you operated 10 minutes using hard today. You're familiar with 10.
Okay, we're seeing large numbers of transient people who are coming from other areas, other geographic areas of the United States through here, particularly in this office because we're the first office listed in the phone book, and this is the one they come to. We're seeing people from Oregon and Washington, Northern California, which is the lumber and fishing industry primarily. We're seeing people from the Los Angeles, San Diego area. And we're also seeing people from the Phoenix area. And of course, that's more or less a tourism type operation and some light manufacturing.
The Corporation Commission staff and utility companies have already worked out some of their differences, but there are other problems that will have to be resolved in hearings before the suggestions reach the commissioners themselves. Among them are security deposits, who should and shouldn't have to pay them, and the rate of interest on them. Another is the procedure for cutting off power for failure to pay or for fraudulent use of services. The Corporation Commission staff says they are changes that are needed, and they expected differences.
We believe that the proposals that we have made are, for the most part,
the types of proposals which the companies could live with and which would lead to better regulation of our electric utilities in Oklahoma. We also recognize that the companies will have some valid points to raise in the hearings. And the whole purpose of having hearings in these types of proceedings is to find out just what the best thing is to do.
So I think there's some restriction there that we need to have an understanding about.
An OG&E spokesman says his company and the commission aren't that far apart.
Many of the rules that we're looking at, we've asked that there be clarification. So it's not a matter of just being the staff's recommendation, and there are rules that apply to both the consumer and to the companies, the benefit to both, that we need to get worked out. To answer your question very directly, all costs ultimately are paid for by the consumer.
Whatever the differences, the dialogue between the public utilities and the commission isn't over, and more changes in the proposals are likely before they go into effect. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.